What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. Time for, I don't know when these will be released. It's the first one I'm recording. Our first episode from the Advanced Player's Guide for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. A book that's enormous, a book that's really cool, a book that has a lot of really great stuff in it. All of the classes from the beginning of the game have gotten new content. All of it's really cool. Some of it's really powerful. Some of it I didn't think we'd see this fast. So if you're liking what you're seeing, remember to like, subscribe, and ding the bell. If you want to roll some 2nd edition, through the power of Patreon, we can make that happen. Or, you know, other things as well. Everything from Google Sheets to private chats to your name in the credits of videos just like this one. I've rambled too much. I've probably already jumped the shark by making big clickbaity evil champions. But there's a shitload to unpack, so let's hit it. Okay, so I'm gonna take these down the line. Some classes are getting more swag than others, but everybody's getting something cool. Beginning with the Alchemist, the toxicologist research field, which I believe was around in the playtest, has made its return for all of you fun, poisony friends. Grabbing this will let you start with the formula for 2 common first-level alchemical poisons, and in addition, you can apply an injury poison you're holding to a weapon you're wielding as a single action rather than a 2-action activity, and you can change the DCs of your infused poisons to your class DC if it's higher. So if you really just want to hang out in Giant Centipede Venom Town all campaign, you can do that. I think that's really cool because a lot of poison DCs will just fall off as you level. To speak in wizardese real quick, this means when you run out of higher level spell slots, quote unquote, the lower ones can still carry on. Its field discoveries and perpetual infusions are great for poison stuff. Greater field discovery lets you put 2 different injury poisons on that same weapon, though not a piece of ammunition. The 2 poisons can be up to 6 levels lower than your level, and you can't use the poisons made without spending a batch of infused reagents via perpetual infusions. Each poison requires a separate action to apply. Once completed, you combine the poisons into a double poison with the lower of the 2 DCs. I think this was an Alchemist discovery in 1E, I forget. The double poison's only virulent if both were virulent, and if the poisons have a different number of stages, the double poison has a number of stages equal to the poison with the lower number. It also means more debuffs at once. What more do you want? A boatload of class feats? Because there's a boatload of class feats. Am I going to touch on all of these at once? No, probably not right now. For some classes I will because some are getting more class feat support. But let's just say we're going to be making a lot of 2E min-maxing for fun and profit content moving forward. Because honestly, this book just has so much shit in it. Anyway, Barbarians got that superstition instinct. Everybody loves it. Not everyone loves magic though. This means while raging, you get a +2 status bonus to all saves against magic, which is huge. Increase your damage from rage from 2 to 4 against creatures that can cast spells. Once every 10 minutes when you rage, you regain hit points equal to the temporary HP you gain from that rage action. However, willingly accepting the effects of magic spells, including from scrolls, wands, and the like, even from your allies, is anathema. You can still drink potions and invest and activate most magic items you find, though items that cast spells are subject to the same restriction. If an ally insists on using magic despite your unwillingness, and you have no reason to believe they will stop, continuing to travel with that ally of your own free will counts as willingly accepting their spells. So that's rough. That's real hard when you're like wounded 3, dying 10 bajillion for the 4th time that day, and the cleric is just, no, man, I'm sorry, I need to heal you. Whoops, now you've got a problem. For the Superstitious Barbarian's resistance, you choose 2 associated magic traditions, Arcane and Occult, Arcane and Primal, Divine and Occult, or Divine and Primal. The resistance from your Raging Resistance class feature applies against all damage you take from spells cast with these 2 traditions of magic, regardless of whether or not it's fire or slashing or mental or what have you. Real nice to shut off both the fireball and the cone of cold. Bards now receive the Warrior Muse. For all you College of Swords / Scalds, you get martial performance for free. which means you're trained with all martial weapons. If you gain Bard Weapon Expertise, it applies to all of them. And as you can imagine, the various composition cantrips that go down from this are all geared to making folks better at the art of doing grievous harm. Will we see a Scald? Is this the Scald? Who knows? Moving on, Champions got the big one today. You knew you'd see it at some point. There was definitely an anti-paladin in Doomsday Dawn, though admittedly I'm kind of surprised we see it this fast. Evil Champions. All three of the above must follow the tenets of evil. Never performing acts anathema to your deity or willingly committing a purely good act like giving to charity, casting a good spell, or using a good item. One of those things seems much easier to do than the other two, but alright. You must never put another person's needs before your own, and you must never put your own needs before those of your deity. Though you can perform acts others might consider helpful, you always have to have your own goals at the endgame there. The causes, of course, lawful evils coming down with the Tyrant, which adds, let no one who is lesser than you wield power over you or lead you. Mercilessly enforce established hierarchies of masters and servants, topple or seize control of illegitimate hierarchies, such as democratic governments, or the arrogant echelons of celestial planes, and fill power vacuums by taking that power for yourself, as you do. Bind the weak to serve you. This tenet doesn't require you to spare foes' lives if you think they would be disloyal if you were to press them into servitude. Nor does it mean you have to keep more servants than you feel practical or useful, but the champ's reaction Iron Command for our tyrants. With the trigger, an enemy within 15 feet damages you. You put an impertinent foe who dared harm you in their proper place. You command them to kneel before you in obedience. If they refuse, they must pay the price in pain and anguish. The foe must choose one of the following options: either drop prone as a free action by kneeling, refuse and you deal 1d6 mental damage, which ups as you level, and your strikes deal 1 extra damage until the end of your next turn. This also ticks up as you go. Flavor on that one makes sense, but I feel like at a lot of tables that will get really exhausting to roleplay out when you're fighting like 6 bandits and every turn somebody different hits you and you react to Iron Command and you just whip around in that matte black full plate and kneel. And it either gets really confusing as everyone's doing this new dance you've just made, or they're refusing and no one's listening to you, which I imagine just drives this guy further into evil acts. Fun! The Desecrator at neutral evil only adds subvert or corrupt everything in your path that is pure and good and sow doubt among those upholding such ideals. Pretty easy, barely an inconvenience, just staple it on at the end and you get Selfish Shield. An enemy within 15 feet damages you. You gain resistance against the triggering damage equal to 2 plus half your level, regardless of the damage type. And your strikes against the triggering creature do extra damage. Makes a lot of sense for the guy who only cares about himself to only buff himself out. At Chaotic Evil, the AntiPaladin adds you must not bind yourself with any law or oath beyond that of your code, though you can still pick a champion feat with the oath trait. Act dishonorably, take advantage of others' lie, cheat, and steal to get what you want, and you must destroy that which offends you and which stands in your way, including and perhaps especially the forces of good and law that oppose you. This tenet does not force you to take action immediately if it means you're going to run into the arms of the angel and that angel's going to grapple you to death or something. But hey, there it is. Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, then crush something else for your third action. Destructive Vengeance. Again with that trigger, an enemy within 15 feet damages you. So I imagine despite the art, we're looking at a lot of two-handed paladins coming down and no shield reacts. We want to get hit to do our thing. You can increase the amount of damage you take by 1d6 and you deal 1d6 damage to the triggering enemy, choosing evil or negative damage to deal each time you use this reaction. In addition, your strikes get bigger. This damage all scales with level, which is a little scary, but it is on flavor. If you hit me, I'll let you hit me harder. I'll lurts it up real hard, but it's gonna hurt your brain. That's fun. Of course, eventually these all get persistent chaw damage and eventually start hurting other people or giving you more resistances as they level up into little baby auras. Of course, non-evil champions Also get a lot of cool stuff in here too. Again, so much more to go. Clerics get a bunch of class feats which seem to be focused mostly on the art of keeping people from dying. For example, as a reaction, rapid response when an ally is reduced to 0 HP, you stride towards the triggering ally with a 10-foot circumstance buff to your speed. Same story for druids. A lot of their class feats are coming in the form of seed flavor this time. For example, Verdant Weapon. Cultivate a seed that sprouts into a wooden staff, vine whip, or another weapon. This costs you 10 minutes, focusing primal energy into a seed, imprinting it with the potential of a single level 0 weapon you're trained with that has no mechanical parts or metal components. So no swords here, but hey, there are other weapons. It's all good. A spike chain that is just rose whip. Kitsune win, we have to build Kurama, it's clear. When holding the imprinted seed, you can spend a single interact action to cause it to immediately grow into that weapon. A second interact puts it back in its seed sheath. That's a fun one to say. Your Verdant Weapon functions as the imprinted weapon. You can rune it, you can talisman it, but you can only have the one at a time. On flavor, I really like this. A druid who wants to be a little more weapon focused, who wants to sneak weapons into town, that's really cool. Farther, though it takes so long to get there, so spell. For one action, if your next action is to cast a spell using one action or two actions, the spell instead plants itself in an adjacent square. You must make all decisions regarding the spell at the time you cast it. Within the next 10 minutes, you can direct your sown spell to sprout and produce the spell's effects as a reaction, which is triggered when a creature enters the sown spell's space or a square adjacent. You can have only one sown spell active at a time. If you don't trigger it in 10 minutes, it dissipates and the spell is lost. A creature can notice the sown spell with a successful perception check against your spell DC. Everything from put the heal here, and if you move there, I'll react to heal you, to put the fireball at the door, and when they come in, a strange rose blooms out of the dirt, and then there's an explosion. Fun! As you would expect, the fighter also gets just a crap load of class feats. Everything from cutting fireballs out of the air to having better charges. I think the thing I like the most, and we see it also on the dwarf ancestry a little bit, thrown weapon feats that make them a little more accessible. For example, rebounding toss at feat level 2, make a ranged strike for 2 actions. If it hits, it bounces towards an enemy within 10 feet of the original target. Make an additional strike against the second target. Both attacks count towards your multiple attack penalty, but the penalty doesn't increase until after you've made both, which is just kind of a baby star toss style, and I love that. Ricochet stance for 1 action. While you're in this stance, any thrown weapon you use as part of a ranged strike to deal bludgeoning or slashing damage immediately bops back to your hand, enabling you to throw it again, enabling you to only have to enchant the one. If you make a ranged strike with a thrown weapon outside of its listed range increment, it flies back and falls a little short of you, but I really like these. Since bows are only doing half strength to damage right now, things that buff out the things that can do full damage means that playstyle is a little more accessible. Again, easier to enchant one weapon than to enchant a bunch of them that you plan on throwing. Doubly true when you think that this could then also be your primary melee weapon, allowing you to invest all your gold into just that one star knife, for example. Monks are all a giant sack of feats as well, several of them in the form of stances. I think the one that stands out the most to me is Monastic Archer Stance. While in this stance, the only strikes you can make are those using longbows, shortbows, or bows with the monk trait. You can use your Flurry of Blows with these bows. That's fun to say. You can use your other monk feats or monk abilities that normally require unarmed attacks with these bows when attacking within half the first range increment, so long as the feater ability doesn't require a single specific strike. Also, there's the Zen Archer. What more do I need to say? Maybe a lot, because there's a lot of them. Seriously, monks got so many different style things. Rangers are getting a lot of hunter stuff, or I guess maybe I should say a lot of magic stuff. Gravity weapon, sees lead blades and gravity bow put together. That's super dope. Enlarged companion, magic hide, heal companion, helping further buff out their pets. Look how happy Harsk is about this. He's really just raising the roof. Rogue players are getting the Mastermind and Eldritch Trickster Eldritch Trickster, choose a multi-class archetype that has a basic, expert, and master spellcasting feat. You gain that archetype's dedication feat as a bonus feat even though you're level 1. Magical Trickster has a prerequisite of 2nd instead of 4th. And there's the Arcane Trickster. Well done. Mastermind, if you successfully identify a creature using Recall Knowledge, that creature is flat-footed against your attacks until the start of your next turn. If you critically succeed, it's flat-footed against your attacks for a minute. That's terrifying, that's scary, that has Investigator Dip all over it. For 1 action, Recall Knowledge. Oh, I got a critical success? Cool. Now I'm going to shank the hell out of you because my class is online now, because you're flat-footed to me, and the party knows stuff. That's really cool. The Sorcerer will be receiving not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 new bloodlines. 1 for each tradition. I like how they did that. That's pretty good. Arcane Bloodline gets the Genie Bloodline, which gets you Arcana, trained in Arcana and Deception. And when your blood magic is online, there's a +1 status bonus to Deception checks for a round, or the bad guy takes a -1 status penalty to Perception. Primal Casters are getting the Nymph Bloodline, because Fey Bloodline wasn't good enough, I guess. Gets you trained in Diplomacy and Nature, gets you a bunch of fun spells, and a +1 status bonus to Diplomacy checks for a round, or a -1 status penalty to Will saves for a round on Blood Magic. Divine Casters are getting the Psychopomp Bloodline, trained in Intimidation and Religion. Blood Magic gives them a +2 status bonus to Fort saves for a round, or a target takes 1 damage per spell level, which is super scary if you're trying to build a Harmomancer. The damage is negative if the target is living, or positive if the target is undead. If the spell already deals that type of damage, it's all wrapped up together. Definitely built a lot of Divine Sorcerers already in the playtest. I think Psychopomp Bloodline looks a little better for them. Be a little harder to heal. You wouldn't have those gnashing claws and teeth and things. Lastly, the Shadow Bloodline gets you Occultism and Stealth, Bard Magic for some reason, and a +1 status bonus to Stealth, or -1 to their Perception. Of course, there's so much more going on here. Patrons, request I build these sorcerers. There's so much going on here. Wizard players receive a new Arcane Thesis in the form of Staff Nexus, which lets you begin play with a makeshift staff of your own invention. It contains 1 cantrip and 1 first level spell, both from your spellbook, but it gains no charges normally. During your prep, you have to feed it. It's like a reverse Arcane Bond, fair enough. You can craft it into any other type of staff. And there you go, Gandalf the Grey. What more do you want? Gandalf the White, I guess, would be the obvious answer there. Lastly, before we wrap this video up, we've got several new animal companions and some options for unique familiars. I'm not going to touch on everybody here. Animal companion options now include the ape, arboreal sapling, remember that's a baby treant, bat, boar, crocodile, scorpion, shark, and I think coolest of all, riding drake. A swift, flightless drake with limited intelligence, a little less vicious than most drakes, but has the mount trait. Because if you didn't want to ride a horse or a dog into battle, why not ride a dragon? Why not let that dragon snort fire in your foes' faces until the start of your next turn? Each time you bop while riding the drake and hit a creature, it takes 1d4 fire damage, which scales up eventually to 2d4, and of course this thing gets a true breath weapon as it goes on. For 2 actions, unfortunately only once per hour, but 1d6 fire damage for every 2 levels the drake has to everybody in a 30-foot cone. Also, it's my headcanon that now we're riding the Golden Axe dragons. Yeah, that's dope. Lastly, it's 3 specific familiars. Anybody can grab one of these as long as they have a familiar with at least the required number of abilities listed in the specific familiar's stat block. The Fairy Dragon, which takes 6, has a 2-action breath weapon once per hour, firing off a euphoric gas in a 10-foot cone. Each creature in the area has to fort save against your class DC or spell DC, whichever's higher. A creature that fails its save is, man, you really thought we were going to get away from it, but I guess not. God, I'm just going to go borrow from that Disturbed song, aren't I? Is 2 and slowed for 1d4 rounds. On a critical failure, it's a minute. Imps can cast Invisibility as a 2nd level Divine Innate spell once per hour. and once per day for 1 action has Infernal Temptation. Good, that probably has no bad side effects, don't even think about it. The imp offers a non-fiend within 15 feet, a bargain, granting a boon of good luck if the creature accepts. The boon lasts for 1 hour once accepted. If a creature dies while the boon is in place, it immediately goes to hell where it's bound for eternity and unable to be raised or resurrected except by wish. Oops, all of our wizards are now in danger, but once per hour you can roll an attack roll or saving throw twice and use the more favorable result, which is really good. Cheating the RNG is super powerful. I guess we have an option that's not strictly be adopted by halflings. Why not be adopted by Asmodeus himself? Lastly, the Spell Slime, a friendly, colorful ooze. I don't know how I feel about having Flubber as a companion, but sure. It gets an imprecise scent with a range of 30 feet that lets it smell magic of the same tradition as your own. It's immune to crits and precision damage, but has a lower AC, and has the focused rejuvenation ability. Recovers 2 HP when you refocus instead of 1. Okay, yeah, that's a lot to unpack, and there's even more. Seriously, this book is way more than I expected it to be. I was thinking we'd have a bunch of races, 4 classes, some magic items. Good, hooray. No, there's, like, I'm still going through this book mining for content, and I've had it for a minute. Anyway, thank you, Paizo, for the chance to review this stuff. Thank all of you for your support, hanging out. What are we thinking? What are we rolling? What are we playing? Honestly, I haven't had that much 2nd edition in my life, so I don't understand the metagame as well as I do like 1E. So for reals, your thoughts are super helpful. Put them in the comments, and there's going to be a lot of 2E stuff rolling down in the next few weeks. And friends, I will see you next time.